Hello! I am so excited that you are here in the Break Free from Toxic Love Masterclass 2.0. You might have seen the old version, but this is the new upgraded version, and I'm so glad you're here. And so, this masterclass, we are going to dive so deep, probably deeper than you have ever gone before, into how to break your toxic relationship cycle for good, so you can finally become secure in yourself, you can attract your dream secure partner, and finally experience the love you've been wanting to experience in a relationship since you were a little girl. And my real focus for you in this masterclass is that by the end of this, you will know exactly what toxic love is, why you keep ending up in it from a root cause perspective, because then that gives you the exact direction of what you need to heal and what you need to dive deeper into, and also how to break out of this toxic relationship cycle that you've been stuck in. And I'm going to give you the roadmap of this. I'm going to tell you how I did it, and I'll share a little bit more about my story very shortly. But I also want you to know that no matter where you are in the spectrum right now, like whether you are still in your unhealthy relationship, but chances are if you're here, you are in the motions of considering leaving, whether you have recently left your relationship and you're in the throes of heartbreak, biggest virtual hug to you right now. Or even if you are a little while out from your last relationship and you're in the dating scene, but you're recognizing that you're just attracting in the same type of emotionally unavailable, narcissistic, fuckboy guy, just in different fonts over and over, and you need to do something about it because it's not the kind of relationship you want to have. You are in the right place. So buckle up. Let's dive into it. So what are we going to be covering in today's session? So we're going to I'm first going to share a little bit about my journey, why I am so passionate about doing this work, why I'm so passionate about helping women like you break this cycle, because I used to be you. I used to be exactly where you are right now, but I'm also living proof that it is possible to break the cycle for good. So then we're going to dive into how to know you are in a toxic relationship, because it really does exist on a spectrum. Noticing the lasting impact. You might be aware of a couple ways that it's still hanging on or holding you back, but there really is, it affects you in so many different parts of your life in ways you don't even realize, especially if you were in a toxic relationship for a really, really long time. Then we're going to dive super deep into the why you really keep attracting toxic love. And this is something that I'm going to share more about, but notice here that I said why you keep attracting toxic love. And I'm certainly not here to say it's your fault, you're to blame. No, that's not how I am. But what I am here to say is we need to, in order to break your unhealthy, toxic relationship cycle, you need to start by taking radical responsibility for how you are contributing to your own unhealthy relationship dynamics. And until you take that radical responsibility, you are just going to keep cycling the same patterns over and over, or you're going to keep hating men, or you're going to keep sitting in this place of feeling like the victim. But that is none of those places are where you can actually change, become secure, and call in that dream secure partner I know you all want eventually. I'm going to then share how you break this cycle. I'm going to show you how to break it for good. I'm going to give you the 5 best things I did after my breakup to heal, and then call in my dream secure partner who I'm with now. We've been together for 2.5 years. So this is what we're going to be covering in today's session. Firstly, who am I? I mean, a lot of you are here, you follow me on Instagram, but also there's probably a lot of you here that just saw this pop up. Maybe you came in from the free ebook, maybe you saw a reel about this and you're just like, this is speaking to me. Let's dive in. So who am I? I am Kendall. I am from New Zealand, if you can't tell by the accent. I'm a certified women's trauma and relationship coach, holistic health coach, Aruka healer, somatic dance facilitator. I wear many different hats, but it all pulls into this, the space that I work in. So I help strong-willed, determined, and deep-feeling women to heal your past trauma 10 times faster than talk therapy using my somatic, emotional processing, and energetic trauma healing modalities so that you can become the secure woman you've always dreamed of being. So you can be secure in yourself. You can be secure when you're single. You can be secure when you're dating, in your career, in your business, in your relationships. All of those outer areas of your life, they all start by you becoming secure in yourself. And so, a little bit about me. I used to battle depression, chronic anxiety, crippling anxious attachment, low self-worth, and I battled all of that for many years. Most of my late teens and early 20s was spent on antidepressants, in constant depressive cycles, feeling like I would never be free of it, trying medication, talk therapy, counseling, different things like that, and maybe getting a little bit of progress, but there'd always be something that would just yank me back and I'd spiral downwards again. And ultimately, the way I would try and cope with that was to numb and avoid and suppress, because I didn't know any other way. The therapy wasn't working, the medication wasn't helping that much. And so I turned to alcohol, drugs, dating the wrong people, which led me into nearly 10 years of back to back to back toxic relationships, toxic situationships, which left me with a lot of trauma and sort of doubled down on the pain, as I think a lot of people, if you can relate to this, a lot of people experience. You go, oh, I'm just going to avoid it and numb it with these sort of substances or dating or relationships, but you generally just end up adding more trauma that you've later got to go heal, right? And so when it came to relationships for me, I always had unhealthy or toxic relationships. And these are little snippets of me from my past three sort of major relationships. And in between these, there were unhealthy situationships. I was very rarely single for more than maybe a couple of months. And even in those couple of months, I would be like on the apps, I'd be dating because I couldn't be alone. My first love, and I don't have anything bad to say about him. He's a lovely person, but it was very codependent. We were both quite wounded. We were both anxiously attached. And honestly, it brought out a lot of toxicity in me. So it wasn't a toxic relationship, but it certainly wasn't healthy. The next relationship that I was in when I was 19 was very love bombing, hot, cold, gaslighting. He was a flaming narcissist. He was emotionally abusive. It was very volatile. That was something that was very, as much as it was very familiar, it was also very jarring to experience at 19. And I didn't even realize that it was emotionally abusive until quite a few years afterwards. And that sort of slapped me in the face, and I had to do a whole heap of healing on that, because I had to come to the reality of I'd landed in a relationship that I thought I was trying to avoid. And then my last relationship, which I was in for 4.5 years, and it was 4.5 years of a fucking roller coaster of high highs and the lowest of lows. He was severely avoidant, covert narcissist, a very wounded and traumatized person, which is like a red flag to a bull for me. I'm a healing person. I want to help. I want to be the fixer. And so I tried to fix him. I kept all my fingers and toes crossed for 4.5 years that maybe one day he would become the person that I wanted. But ultimately, I was just in love with his potential. And that ended with him cheating on me multiple times. But I honestly see that as one of the biggest blessings of my entire life. I remember having a moment when I left that relationship, and I call it my movie moment because it was so dramatic. I was, we'd just broken up. I was driving away from the house we were living in. I had, a couple of bags in the back of my car. It was nighttime. We lived rurally, so there wasn't streetlights. It was a full moon. It was raining. I was crying. It was very dramatic. But I remember having this moment where I went, if this is part of my journey, if this is part of my plan, I know it's painful, I know this sucks, but I'm trusting that this is part of my plan. Universe, God, higher power, whatever. And if this is the case, I am going to surrender into it. I am going to feel everything. I am going to heal deeper than I've ever healed before, because by that point, I had been in back-to-back toxic relationships for like 8 years. And I had been in this position of being heartbroken and feeling like a shell of myself many times prior to this. And I was fucking done. I was done. And so the work that I then did, and I'll talk more about the specific things that I did further on in this masterclass, but the work that I did led me into the work that I now coach women and help women such as you to do as well. Because the work I did completely changed the trajectory of my life. Completely changed it. I'm a different person now. I have a loving relationship now because of the decision I made in that moment to go, I'm done. I am going to do whatever I need, whatever it takes to make sure I never end up in this situation again. And I'm sure a lot of you are at that position for yourselves right now. And so again, you are in the right place. This is where you start. So let's now break down what is a toxic relationship. And I want to clarify this. So a toxic relationship is not just one that's abusive. I think there's a lot of people that'll just think a toxic relationship means an abusive relationship or a physically abusive relationship. And if it doesn't tick those boxes, then what are you complaining about? Fuck that. That's not true. A toxic relationship is any relationship. Obviously, this masterclass and what I work and we're talking about romantic relationships, but it can apply to family members, friendships. Any relationship can be toxic. So it's any relationship where one or both people consistently engage in harmful behaviors that then negatively impact the other person's well-being, mental health, sense of safety, and self-esteem. So this, again, exists on a spectrum. It really doesn't have to be full-blown abusive to be toxic. Yes, of course, abusive relationships are toxic. Narcissistic relationships, any relationship with a narcissist is toxic, but it doesn't have to tick those boxes to be toxic. It can be toxic. Some of the signs in the relationship that it can be toxic is constant hot and cold behavior. So, they're love bombing you 1 second and then pulling away or gaslighting you or causing arguments or silent treatmenting you the next. It's that inconsistency. And this is one of the absolute trademarks of a toxic relationship, is the consistent inconsistency. So you basically don't know whether you're coming and going. You don't know what version of your partner you are going to get that day. You don't know how they're going to respond to something. You don't know whether they're going to show up when you need to, because they are consistently inconsistent with their affection, their effort, their behaviors, their treatment of you. And so that in itself is incredibly disorientating. That is something that can leave such a long-term mark on you, on your nervous system, on your belief system, if you do not do the deeper healing work, because you have been so used to walking on eggshells, so used to living in limbo, so used to being hyper vigilant and trying to preempt something that you can't preempt because the other person is so all over the show. They will love bomb you. They gaslight you. They use different tactics of manipulation, covert or overtly. They will guilt trip you. And it's not like you have to tick every single one of these boxes. You need to tick a fair amount of them. But it's not like if you haven't ticked all of these, then it doesn't count. We're talking in a general sense here. There's a lack of emotional intimacy, a lack of feeling safe. Like, and this is the thing with safety too. It doesn't just mean physically safe. We're talking more about emotional safety here of like, do you feel safe to be yourself? Do you feel safe to share your wants, your needs, your emotions, your desires? Do you feel safe to speak up? Do you feel safe to disagree with them? Because disagreement is a very normal, healthy part of any kind of connection because we're not all carbon copies of each other, but it's how you navigate that disagreement. So that is the important piece around safety, of that emotional safety. Do you feel emotionally connected to them? Are they emotionally available people? Or do they just shut down the first sign of any kind of emotion? Do you feel like, if you're feeling like you're walking on eggshells, if you feel like your needs are minimized, dismissed, or you're seen as too much, too sensitive, too emotional, too dramatic, not good. There's, in a toxic relationship, there's often a lot of jealousy or control, cheating, lying, betrayal. Again, not always, but if any of these exist, in an jealousy in an unhealthy level, like, it's a toxic relationship. And then also the cycle of breaking up and then getting back together, being on and off, also not healthy, because that, and it's the imprint that causes on your nervous system, is that high, low, high, low, high, low. That is the trademark of a toxic relationship. Signs in you. Signs to know, like, so those are all like behaviors in a toxic relationship. Here are the signs within you that you are in or have been in a toxic relationship. You feel anxious, insecure, or like you're going crazy more often than not. And this, like, feeling like you're going crazy is particularly apparent if you are with someone who is narcissistic or a narcissist, or uses a lot of like manipulation, gaslighting, because all of that makes you question your own perspective on reality, question your own feelings, your own wants, your own needs, your own beliefs, your own values. They do it for a reason, to make you feel like you're going crazy, because then you're easier to control, you're easier to do. It makes you easier to do what they want you to do. So that feeling of like, I describe it as sort of feeling like emotionally or energetically dizzy, because you just don't know where you're coming or going. More signs. So you constantly second guess yourself, or you feel like you're the problem. You know, you're always, they're the one that's telling you that it's something wrong with you. You know, you're talking about trying to talk to them about the relationship problems or what you need from them, and they flip it around and it's always your fault. You try and, you know, disagree or share something, it's always your fault. Always taking the blame. And the more often you experience that, the more you're going to feel like you are the problem, and you're going to believe that. You try to be low maintenance. You're trying to be low maintenance, and to do that, you abandon your needs, your wants, your boundaries, your voice, your values, and you're doing it to try and keep them happy so that they don't leave. You're doing it so you don't rock the boat. And that like fear of like them not leaving is very heavily tied to you having an abandonment wound. And that we will talk more about a little bit later. You chase them for love and attention or reassurance, and generally only get breadcrumbs back. But it's like you're in full starvation mode when you're in these types of relationships. And so even just a breadcrumb is better than nothing. You feel like you are a shell of yourself, like you've lost your identity. That is so common when you come out of a toxic relationship. You feel addicted, like chemically addicted, physically addicted to the highs and lows. Like you want to leave, but you can't, because anytime you try, it's that it's like, oh, stab to the heart. Like you feel the physical pain, and it becomes too much. So you can't actually leave and then stay gone. You probably know you deserve more, but again, you're terrified to leave. You feel stuck. You don't know how to break the cycle. Anytime you try, it's the worst pain ever. And I want to dive deeper now into the lasting impact. So a lot of those that we just went over, they can have, they can reverberate, they can continue on, right? But here are some of the most common long-term, or they can be long-term if you don't do the healing impacts of toxic relationships that I see when women come and work with me. It's a little drink break. Okay, so the first one, you feel like a shell of yourself. Again, this is especially common if you are coming out of a relationship with a narcissist. And when I ask clients who I'm working with who are coming out of toxic or narcissistic relationships, one of the question I always ask them is, what brings you joy? What brings you joy? Who are you without them? And most commonly, there's a terrifying answer of, I don't know. And that's what the relationship does to you, is it makes you feel like you have no idea who you are or what brings you joy. It's stolen your spark. That person has stolen your spark. They've stolen your confidence, your self-trust, your self-belief, and your power with it. And that leaves you feeling like this small little scared shell of yourself. I get it. I've been there multiple times. It's such an awful feeling, and it can push you into sort of a space of feeling just permanently frozen in shock, not knowing what to do next, feeling overwhelmed by emotion constantly because, again, you have no idea what's going on. Like, you don't know yourself anymore, and that's a really scary feeling and concept. Can also push you the other way into being like you're so scared that you just push yourself back into unhealthy distraction, numbing, avoidance behaviors as well. With this too comes chronic self-doubt and low self-worth. The way a toxic partner will chip away at your self-esteem to make themselves feel better or to avoid them being triggered should be bloody criminal, because they do. The longer you stay in an unhealthy relationship, the more of your self-worth they eat up. And honestly, if you don't do this deeper work to rebuild your self-worth and your self-trust, you will only go and repeat the same pattern over and over and over again. Because if you don't believe that you are worthy of more because someone else has made you feel that way, which is always the case because you were not born feeling like you weren't worthy, then you see yourself as like a 4 out of 10, then you're not going to think that you can get a 6 out of 10. You're going to go, whoa, that's too good for me. You'll sabotage it. So you're looking at what? Anywhere between a 1 to a 4 out of 10. What kind of standards are those? Those are shitty people that will treat you shitty. And so you just continue that cycle. Your nervous system gets addicted to the chaos. And this can show up in relationships and dating for sure, because you chase those familiar high highs and low lows. But it can also show up in other areas of your life. In work, I see it a lot. Over exercising, always having to be in a state of stress. I remember when I was in the thick of this cycle and in the thick of my last relationship, in a previous life, when I worked in the corporate space, I was in a job interview and I said, I love stress. I look back on that now and I cringe and I feel sorry for that younger version of myself, because she didn't love stress. She was just so used to living in chaos that it was her normal, that it was familiar to her. And so she could cope in it. But that's not a brag. That is a sign of living in chaos. And I was in a toxic relationship, had been in toxic relationships for many years, had grown up in a toxic and chaotic household. I was addicted to it. Now, stress and I are not friends because I've done this deeper nervous system healing work. Again, more things. So you're scared to be vulnerable. So you will suppress your emotions. You silence yourself. You're scared to be too much because you've been in relationships where your vulnerability has either been rejected, and rejection sucks. And so every time you've tried to, share your emotions, share your voice, you've been shut down. You've been told you're too much, too sensitive, too emotional. It has had a negative reaction. And so now being vulnerable feels unsafe. You may have also had your vulnerabilities used against you or weaponized against you. So again, it feels too dangerous to be vulnerable. So you just push it down, lock it away. But that eats you up inside, and it can also feel very isolating. You will always feel on edge. Even after the relationship, you feel on edge, wired, in survival mode, hyper vigilant, and waiting for something bad to happen, like waiting for the other shoe to drop, because that's the space you've lived in. You have had to, when you're in a toxic relationship, you are in survival mode. And so you have developed self-protection patterns to try and survive. And one of those big ones is hypervigilance, of trying to detect what mood that your partner is in by hearing their footsteps coming down the hallway or up the front steps. I used to be able to tell how, and the hypervigilance often starts in childhood. I could tell the kind of mood that my dad was in by the way he drove up his car drove up the driveway, and his first step on like the step outside our garage. I could tell what kind of mood he was in. And that would then determine how I behaved. Self-protection. But to be always in the state of hypervigilance, or as a meerkat, I often use this analogy, meerkats, there's always like a little meerkat on watch over his friends, whatever the word is for a group of meerkats. And always being up, on alert, on watch out for danger, waiting for something to go wrong. That's fucking exhausting. It also gives you quite a negative outlook on the world if you are always scanning for the bad thing, the dangerous thing. You're always beating yourself up. You're always taking the blame and over apologizing. Over apologizing is one of the patterns that I have found the hardest to kick. And it's something that I have only really got a handle on in the last sort of like 18 months since being with my partner, because it was something that he was like, why are you like, what is going on with this? Like, you don't need to apologize for these things. It would be, he wanted to go surfing and the surf was bad, so I'd apologize. I'm like, oh, sorry about that. And he's like, you can't control the weather. Why are you apologizing? And in a loving way, of course. And I explained to him why that is, but it's because you're so used to trying to appease the situation to avoid a big reaction from your partner, your past partner. So you apologize, you take the blame for it, you beat yourself up. And it's also a part of trying to stay in control in the situation. It's self-protection. Okay, 5 more. So you settle for breadcrumbs and more poor treatment, telling yourself it's better than nothing because it's all you've known. And there's also that deep fear of being alone and your abandonment wound that thinks, well, it's better to be with someone than no one. It's better to get it sometimes than never at all. If you're thinking those thoughts, you need to heal your abandonment wound, which again, I'll talk more about shortly. It's really common to shift when you come out of a toxic relationship, to shift into a fearful attachment style, and or your pre-existing anxious or avoidant attachment style gets a lot worse because you've basically just lived in a state of danger, survival mode, pushing that trigger button for your attachment style. So it gets really heightened, really intense. It can absolutely be healed, as I will talk more about, but that's definitely something that I see comes up a lot, or a lot of women that'll come to me go, oh, I always thought I was anxious, but I've done the quiz and it tells me I'm fearful / disorganized. That's really common. Um, you can become emotionally unavailable. This was something that I experienced after my breakup, where I became the emotionally unavailable one. I closed off. I was scared to open myself up again to dating or love because actually I was scared of getting hurt again. I didn't want to be emotionally available to other people. I wanted to protect myself because I'd been hurt. It's not that you are going to be permanently emotionally unavailable. It's just you can shift into a pattern as a form of protection. You feel haunted by your ex, so you're terrified to bump into them, triggered by things that remind you of them. A song comes on that you might have liked with them, or the lyrics remind you of them and it triggers you. I've had that a few times, but when you know the tools to move through the trigger, it can actually be quite an empowering experience. Every time, you either get a message from them or you see a car that looks like theirs, you get that rush of adrenaline, that like whoosh that goes through your body of fear because you're haunted by them. And that's your nervous system still being attached to them in a very unhealthy way. You constantly obsess and overthink about the answers, trying to search for answers for why they treated you that way, trying to make sense of it. We're logical beings, as humans, we're problem solvers. And so when things happen that you don't understand, your brain is going to keep trying to find the solution, trying to find the reason. But generally, especially when you're dealing with narcissistic or toxic people, the answer is that why? Because they're a narcissist. Why? Because they are so wounded and holding on to so much of their own shit that they weren't able to love you how you deserve to be loved. But you continually cycle around trying to get the answers, trying to make sense, trying to get closure. But closure actually doesn't come from getting an explanation from them. It comes from you letting go of them. And then the last one here is you bring those wounds from those past toxic relationships into your new relationships. And what this can do is sort of two ways. Either you go down the path of you just keep dating more and more toxic people, the pattern continues because you don't believe that you're worth more, you're still carrying the wounds of it. Or, maybe you meet someone who is a really good partner, but it's so unfamiliar, it's so scary that it actually triggers you to self-sabotage because, or, maybe you've been cheated on and you haven't dealt with the wound that betrayal caused. And so then you were just not going to trust your new partner. And eventually that will erode the connection in the relationship. So you self-sabotage from a place of self-protection, but it's not going to help you. So you want to do the deep healing first before you get into a new relationship. Excuse me. Have you ever said to yourself, why does this keep happening to me? Even when you are consciously saying, I want to find a good partner, I want a good man, I want a secure man, I want a healthy relationship. Even when you're listening to all the podcasts or reading the books about dating and relationships, you're following the tips from dating coaches and experts online. What red flags to look out for, questions to ask on a date, yada, yada, yada. But you still keep repeating the pattern. This is why. You are not consciously repeating the pattern. You're not choosing to go out and fall into another unhealthy relationship. You're doing it subconsciously based on how your body has been wired. It's not happening up here. It's happening below in your body, which means that you can't consciously break the cycle. You can't just think, oh, I want a secure man now, having done none of the deeper rewiring or healing work, and think that you can go just meet a great guy. You need to do the deeper healing. You need to do the deep shadow work to heal what created the foundation of your subconscious beliefs, of the behaviors, who you're attracted to, and your patterns and behaviors. You can't just think your way into secure love. You have to teach your body how to feel safe in it. You have to teach your body that this is the norm, not toxicity. So what that means is all the dating tips you're getting online in podcasts from the dating experts you're following, the red flags list, the manifestation hacks, how to manifest your future husband or wife, it won't work until you rewire your subconscious programming and your nervous system so that your body can feel safe in healthy love and it becomes your new normal. And that was in there as a practice, and here a guided practice in this masterclass, not in this live one, it's the next video after this, where I take you through a really beautiful somatic nervous system reprogramming practice where you can start to rewire your nervous system to feel safe. You know, it's not the case where it's just one time and you're going to be like magically rewired. This is something that takes time to create a new normal, but that practice is a really great place to start. Do it once, like more times you do it, the more it can rewire your body. It's really great, and we do more of that work when you work with me, and my containers all one-on-one. So now let's dive into the root causes, the real root causes, and there are 7. Sorry, I'm getting thirsty. I'm using all my words. First one, and this is a biggie, your parent wounds. So I would say for women, not always, but 9 times out of 10, it's your father. It's your father wounds. You did not feel like you had your father's unconditional love. And for women, your fathers are so pivotal in your self-esteem and how that is shaped and whether you feel like you are worthy of being loved and the way you feel you deserve to be loved. Your dad sets the standard for that. And so if you grow up with a father or a parent, it can also be your mum as well. There can also be mother wounds in here, but definitely I see more often, and I also experienced it myself, father wound is the cause, especially I think if you are in a heteronormative relationship that, excuse me, that like father-daughter and then male-female dynamic can be quite similar. Not always, but most common in. And so if you grow up with a parent or a father who was emotionally or physically unavailable, inconsistent, highly critical, their love felt very conditional on you being a certain way, acting a certain way, doing certain things, being the good girl, being the high achiever, that you felt like if you weren't those things, then you wouldn't be loved or you'd lose their love. You felt abandoned, rejected, or neglected, emotionally or physically. You know, physically, they weren't there. They physically abandoned you or neglected you. Or maybe your parents got a divorce or separated, and so you didn't see your dad very often. Or also the emotional side. I think this isn't recognized as much, but your parent might have been like physically in your house, in your like core family unit when you were growing up, but emotionally, they were very emotionally unavailable. They didn't tend to your needs. They didn't make you feel emotionally safe. That is also a form of abandonment. It's emotional abandonment. They were emotionally absent in your life, which for a child is very, very shaping. If your parent was narcissistic or abusive, battled addiction, or was toxic in any other way, this creates parent wounds. And how this then seeds into your relationships is in 2 ways. So you're trying to chase the love you never got from your parent through your adult relationships. You're trying to fill that void, band-aid over that wound through your relationships. Because if someone, subconscious, you might consciously be aware of this, but generally it's your subconscious, is their way of thinking is, if someone loves me, then it'll prove that my worst fear, that I'm unlovable, is wrong. If I can make someone love me more than my own parent who made me feel unlovable does, then maybe that'll finally fix it. But when you're desperate to be loved, you're not too focused on the who or the quality of that person. And so as a result, when you just want someone, anyone to love you, you're not picking the highest quality of partners. So you often just settle for not great partners, and which unfortunately just reinforces that core belief or that fear that you're unlovable and makes it worse and worse. So you choose ultimately a familiar love, even though in your mind you're trying to undo the wound that was created. Um, the other way that this shows up in your adult relationships is that, again, when your parent sets the tone of what love feels like, sets the bar, imprints you with the sort of, oh, this is what love feels like, or this is how I deserve to be loved, then again, you're going to go search for the familiarity. Your parents teach you that blueprint, and if it is unhealthy, emotionally unavailable, inconsistent, if you believe that love means fear, unsafety, anxiety, having to chase, having to prove, feeling like you're not good enough, feeling uncertain, then that is the kind of love you will chase subconsciously in your adult relationships, because your brain is looking for what is familiar. Your brain's number one purpose is to keep you alive. It does not care if you're thriving. Its focus is to keep you alive. And the best way and the easiest way it can do that, because your brain is also quite lazy, is familiarity and predictability. It wants you to do the same thing over and over and over again. One of my favorite quotes is, your brain will always choose a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven. It will always choose something that is familiar and predictable, even if it is unhealthy. And so this is the same thing. It'll go, oh, this is the kind of love that I had as a child. This is what I recognize as normal and familiar, even if it doesn't feel good. So I'm just going to go look for that again, so that I don't have to, so your brain doesn't have to plug on and try and assess a new situation. It can focus on keeping you alive because it already knows the outcome, even if that outcome feels like shit. The second root cause here, and this connects directly with the parent wound, is you're wounded inner child. So if you grew up feeling confused, looking for love or connection or safety or affection or attention from your parents, but you didn't always get it. If you grew up with an unavailable, absent, or inconsistent parent or father, it's about, how did you as a child interpret that? Generally, you're going to think, what's wrong with me for them to treat me like that? Or what's wrong with me if they don't love me, if my own parent doesn't love me? You take on those beliefs that there must be something wrong with you, because children's brains are narcissistic. And not in like they're narcissists and you're going to continue to be. No, it just means our brains are still developing when we're children, and the part of the brain that understands context, that people outside of us have their own lives, doesn't understand that yet. It doesn't know that your dad's treating you that way because he had a really shit day at work, or that your mum is acting that way because she's a narcissist. She doesn't understand that. It's about how your inner child interpreted their treatment of you and what you made it mean about you at that very young age. That is what erodes your self-worth. And so your inner child until you do the inner child work, your inner child is actually the one that's in the driver's seat of your life, operating off the things that she learned in those fundamental development years between ages 0 to 8. They're now saying up to sort of 10, 11, 12 is also, you're still a sponge soaking up how you're supposed to show up in the world. You're creating beliefs about yourself based on what you see, hear, feel, experience. And so that is the version of you that's actually in the driver's seat of your life, and especially when it comes to relationships. So she is the one that's choosing your partners because she is operating off the unhealthy blueprint of love that she was given. And also she is the one that's trying to fix the wounds created within her by your parents, but through your present day relationships, thinking, oh, if I can make him love me, then maybe it'll fix this wound that my father gave me. Maybe it'll make me finally feel lovable. This was a huge piece for me that I didn't even realize, right? But the fact of the matter is that no one else, no partner that you meet can fix that wound. Even if your parent that gave you the wound came to you today and apologized for their behavior, that wouldn't fix the wound, because no one outside of yourself can fix it. You need to fix it. And so when I work with my clients around inner child work, it's all about reparenting. And that's something we dive deeper into inside the hub and also the masterminds, which I'll talk more about at the end as well if you want to continue on diving deeper. So the next root cause, attachment trauma. This also links directly into the last two that I mentioned. So attachment trauma is your first experience of attachment. And so your first experience and sort of how you are wired to understand love and connection and attachment comes from your very first attachment experience, which is with your parents or your primary caregiver. And what shapes your attachment and therefore your attachment style or your attachment system is how consistently is the key word here. How consistently your parents met your core emotional and human needs. So yes, obviously the physical, roof over your head, food, water, clothes, that sort of thing. But when it comes to attachment, we're talking again more about your emotional needs. So things like, were you getting consistent attention, consistent emotional connection, physical presence? When you cried or you were upset or you hurt yourself and you're reaching out to your parent, how consistently did they come to you to help you, to soothe you, to let you know that they are there? Did you feel consistently safe and seen, both emotionally and physically, with your parents? Did you feel heard and understood and valued? Did you feel important? Did you feel unconditionally loved? Those are the key things that form your attachment system. How consistently your parents meet that need. And so how consistently your parents meet those needs equals how healthy and secure your attachment to them is, which that creates the foundation of what you believe connection and love and relationships to be normally. And that determines how securely your attachment system is wired, and therefore your attachment style. So if you grew up where your parents inconsistently met your needs, randomly, occasionally, very rarely, that creates a wounded attachment system. That creates attachment trauma, which then creates your insecure attachment style, whether you are anxious or avoidant or fearful, which is the combo of the two. Generally, anxious or avoidant are your more common ones. And so it's like you had to learn about attachment through your parents. And if they didn't give you a healthy, secure foundation of attachment, then you are going to have to figure out, you're going to have to adapt. As children are so adaptive. And so you had to adapt. Is it that you leant more anxiously and you're like, please come back? You would do anything to try and get that attachment, get a hit of it, get a moment of it. You will go towards it, run towards it, try and cling to it. Whereas someone who leans more avoidant goes, that I have learned, attachment, connection, I've learned hurts me. I don't want to be hurt again. So I am going to go within myself. I'm going to put this wall up and protect myself so I never have to risk getting hurt again. And that leads into the next root cause, which is your anxious or your avoidant attachment style. So again, if you're anxiously attached, you are chasing love because you are terrified of being abandoned. So you will chase and chase and chase and chase and chase to avoid being abandoned. There is no one who will cling on to an unhealthy relationship more than someone who is anxiously attached. Speaking from experience, I was anxiously attached for my entire life up until I did this work 3 years ago. Whereas if you are avoidantly attached, you push away because to you, based on your past experiences, connection, relationship, intimacy, vulnerability, love hurts you. It only leads to hurt. So you don't want to entertain it. But both of them actually stem from the same core wound. They both stem from the abandonment wound. They both stem from that deep-rooted fear of being abandoned and experiencing that fear, pain, upset, confusion, discomfort that you experienced when your parent was inconsistent or abandoned you physically or emotionally. You never want to experience that again. And so you develop your attachment style to protect you, to try and make sure you never feel that again, whether it is clinging to it or whether it is avoiding it altogether. But then we often tip into that space of like, well, then why are the anxious and avoidant always drawn together, right? Because you very rarely would get an avoidant and avoidant, because if two people are just like wanting to run away from connection, then they'll both just run away. Very rare to get two avoidant people in a long-term relationship. Common to get two anxious people, and although that's not inherently bad, it can lead to quite strong like codependency in an unhealthy way as well. So because you've got two people who are like clinging to each other. But what about this really common pattern of you're anxious who's clinging and you're avoidant who's running? So you're just doing a lot of this. Why do they come together? Basically, they're like magnets, but like polarizing magnets, right? So what this means is you are magnets repelling each other, but you're also seeing each other as like you're missing puzzle pieces. So you're often mirroring, the two attachment styles mirror what you lacked as children. And so it's that familiarity or that predictability again. It's on the surface, as an anxious person, you're looking at someone who's avoidant and you're looking, wow, that person's really independent. They're really like strong. They look really brave. Because deep down, that's what you would love to have in yourself, and that's what you would love to have in your like as part of a relationship. The avoidant person is going, wow, look at that anxious person. Like they are so like deep feeling, so loving, like nurturing. I want that. But the problem is that one is always chasing the connection while the other one is running away from it, terrified of the connection. You're always going to end up doing this unless both people are working to come together. Unless, the anxious person is working on becoming secure and so is the avoidant person. It's the only way an anxious and avoidant relationship can work, is if both people are committed and taking the action. Otherwise, you're in for a world full of hurts. Again, speaking from experience, because an anxious person will think, oh, if I just chase a little bit more, then maybe they'll love me. But there's also probably the aspect of an anxious person was typically raised by someone who was avoidant. So you're seeking out that familiarity again. The next piece here, the next root cause, the relationships that were modeled to you. Think about now the relationship that was modeled to you by your parent. your whether they were together and married or just together, or even to like if they'd separated, what was that separation like? And then what was their relationships with their future partners? All of these relationships are basically like creating your blueprint for what is normal in a relationship. And if what you witnessed was dysfunction, toxicity, emotional unavailability, the highs and lows, the chasing, the chaos, a toxic relationship, that's what became your normal. That is the blueprint you were given, and you're like, cool, that is what I'll operate off, because you don't know that it's not normal until you do this work and you go, that is not normal. Right? So what was modeled to you is very, very important here. The next root cause, the unhealed past toxic relationship. So if you've had other past relationships that weren't healthy and you haven't fully processed that feeling of like the heartbreak, the betrayal, manipulation, neglect, abuse, your nervous system is still wired for that. And so again, it'll just go and keep chasing and circling this pattern over and over and over again. And it sort of doubles down on that familiarity, that normalization of the unhealthy behavior and treatment. So you also you have to heal your past, your recent past, but also like your childhood past, your past, right? And that links into our final root cause here, which is you get stuck in a trauma loop. Toxic relationships aren't just a pattern, they are a program that your nervous system operates off. It's a program that your nervous system is addicted to. You get hooked on the chaos, on the highs and lows, the chasing, the dopamine hits of the breadcrumbs, the unavailable partners. Why? How? It's called the partial reward system, or it's also known as the intermittent reinforcement schedule. So both same thing. Basically, what it is that we're talking about here is this is a cycle, and this is this is going to seem like the weirdest tangent, but I swear it has a purpose. It's one of the things that like just fascinates my little brain. But basically, back in oh my gosh, so like the early 1900s, so World War II era, there was a experimental psychologist called B.F. Skinner, and they ran an experiment to, apparently it was about creating pigeon-guided missiles. I don't know, it seems random. I swear there's a point here. But basically, he was training these pigeons to peck on a target, and they were rewarded every time they pecked on the target correctly. That was like, well done, good job, right? But because they were in World War II era and there was rationing, they ended up with this shortage of seed, which led him to only being able to feed the pigeons sort of intermittently and not every time they got it right. And so he fed them every couple of days. What he realized was that when he fed them more randomly and intermittently, the pigeons would actually keep pecking at the button, at the target, because they didn't know when they were going to get food. So they just kept pecking at it, knowing that at some point they would get the food that they wanted, that they would be intermittently or partially rewarded. And so his conclusion was that actually partial reward, random reward was a much more powerful motivator than being rewarded every single time. This concept is the same concept that understands like gambling machines, like the pokies, where you pull the little handle, because it's like people get sucked into, and it's why it's the basis of a gambling addiction as well, because you get sucked into the potential of getting the reward. You know that if you keep going, maybe you'll get that reward the next time, but then you don't, so you keep trying. You know that eventually it will come, and so you keep trying, and that becomes addicting because you know that when you get what you've been trying so hard for, you get the ultimate rush of dopamine. And when it comes to relationships, that's also partnered with oxytocin as well, the bonding chemical or hormone in our bodies. And so you're chasing that high. That's what partial reward is. That is why, you know, in unhealthy relationships, whether it's with fuckboys or narcissists, they flood you with the love bombing and then they pull away and go silent, and you're like that pigeon who's been left hanging, like, hello, where's my treat? I'm doing all the right things, pick, 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 but I'm not getting the reward. But I know that if I keep picking, then maybe I will, because I'm doing the right thing. And then they'll throw you a breadcrumb and you're like, nom, 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 nom. Yay, clearly this pick, 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 picking worked. So I'm just going to keep doing it. You become addicted to that cycle and you get stuck in this trauma loop. You get stuck in this cycle. If you stay in this for long enough, this is what creates the trauma bond, and that craving becomes an addiction. It's, instead of being addicted to an unhealthy substance like drugs or alcohol or, gambling, you become addicted to an unhealthy relationship and an unhealthy person. And so it's why toxic relationships are so hard to leave, because you're addicted. Because anytime you try to leave, like, a chemical addiction, like a drug addiction, you have to go through withdrawals. It's why breakups from toxic relationships fucking suck, because you are literally going through withdrawals. They have actually done, and when I read this blew my mind. They've actually done studies and brain scans comparing the brains and the brain function of people coming out of toxic, abusive, or trauma bonded relationships, and though people who are withdrawing and detoxing from opioids, so heroin and also cocaine. And what they found is that the same areas in their brain were lighting up. When they were running their tests, when they were giving them different stimuli, the same areas of their brains were lighting up, and the same areas of their brains that should have been lighting up weren't. They were both going through the same brain and chemical withdrawal. So going through a toxic relationship breakup, you are literally going through the same withdrawal process as a heroin addict. So of course, when you are, sobbing, feeling heartbroken, feeling that physical pain of the withdrawals, and you just want to text your ex, you want to go back to them, you just want to do anything to stop the pain. That's why, because your body is like, I need another hit, I need another hit, I need another high, just one more time, just one more high. That's not how you get sober. You actually have to detox and sober up from a toxic relationship. And it does happen. It's just those first few weeks to month, it's really fucking hard. But I promise you, the more you persevere, I promise you do come out the other side. And it's like, you have this moment where the trauma bond bubble bursts and you're like, what the fuck was I doing in that relationship? Oh my gosh, right? It always happens. So if you're in that throes of that right now, I promise you there will be an end. So how do you break this cycle? How do you break it for good? I'm about to tell you. This is the foundation of the work that I do, the foundation of the mission that I am on in this space, is you have to heal from the root cause. You cannot break the cycle just with some new dating tips or looking out for certain red flags, because if you don't understand why those red flags are red flags, why they will trigger you, then and what parts of you it's going to trigger, then they don't stick. Also, your subconscious mind is a hell of a lot more powerful than your conscious mind. A really great analogy for this is like, your conscious mind is the one that chooses to get on the bicycle and go for a bike ride. Your subconscious mind is the part of you that knows how to ride the bike, because you learn how to ride the bike as a kid and it's been wired into you. It's not your conscious. If you've never ridden a bike, you can't consciously get on a bike and go like, right, I'm going to ride a bike now and just like ride off into the sunset, because it needs to be wired into your body first. These cycles, these patterns, these beliefs, these behaviors are wired into your body. So you have to heal from the root cause up. It's called the bottom up approach, which is my approach as a coach. A lot of the time, talk therapy or counseling or mindset work works from a top down approach, where you think, oh, this is the symptom at the top, let me try and fix this. Whereas actually you will end up spending a lot of time trying to fix this and not really getting down that much deeper, because you haven't addressed the root cause that's starting the whole cycle in the first place and then creating the symptom. So you want to heal from the root cause. Ooh. You then want to address the trauma and the wound you're still holding on to that created these subconscious beliefs, patterns, behaviors, cycles. You have to address the trauma, the wounding, which is all of those root causes we just spoke about. You have to, because these wounds and these causes are held in your body, imprinted on your nervous system, stored in your subconscious, like I just explained. And so you cannot, I want to just shake you. You cannot talk or think your way out of this. If you have ever had anxiety or had a panic attack, you will know that you cannot just think, I'm going to stop being anxious, or I'm going to stop panicking, and it just magically goes away. You know that doesn't work, because it's happening in your body. The anxiety, the panic is happening in your body. And so trauma responses are the same. Behaviors and patterns that are built off trauma responses are the same. You can't think or talk your way out of it. It's why talk therapy doesn't heal trauma. Talk therapy, chit-chatting on a couch to a therapist, it can be great for self-awareness, for understanding, but it does not heal your trauma. You will just circle the drain. And so you have to heal through your body, where the trauma lives, where the suppressed emotions are stored, where your nervous system has been wired, where your subconscious is. It's in your body. Your body is like the world's biggest computer hard drive. It remembers every experience you've ever had, and it lives in there. So you might be saying, I get this all the time with clients of going, I can't really remember much of my childhood. I don't know why I have these sorts of behaviors. That's because you can't consciously recall the memory. Majority of your memories are in your body. When you do the modalities that get you into your body, like I take my clients through, I'm going to explain shortly, then that is when you can finally unlock the healing. You can do the deep healing, because you are able to access the actual root cause of your trauma and your responses to it. How do you do this? By doing somatic shadow work. This is the system that I work in, and I uniquely combine the two together. Often shadow work is done at like a mindset level, journaling, write it all down, those sorts of things. I combine it with somatic so that you can powerfully and permanently heal the trauma, right? So let me break these two pieces down. So shadow work is the process of uncovering the past parts of yourself that you have repressed, rejected, hidden away because they're too scary, or you think people won't accept you for them. So you push it down, your past traumas, your past painful experiences, your emotions that you don't know how to process, like shame or guilt or anger, or heartbreak or grief. It's the parts of you, the qualities of your personality you think people aren't going to accept that part of me, so I'm going to push that down and lock it into a little box inside myself. Shadow work is the process of opening up that box and like taking stuff out, facing those painful past parts of yourself and healing them. On a spiritual sort of more woo-woo side, it's about taking your shadows and bringing them into the light, accepting them, acknowledging them, facing them, so that you take their power away. You're not scared of them anymore. And so when you combine that with somatics, it's super duper powerful. So somatics is a body-based approach to healing trauma that is focused on getting you out of your head, out of your conscious mind, and into your body so that you can finally process the past trauma, the unprocessed emotions that are stuck and held in your body. So it's a modality that pulls from physiology, psychology, biology, neuroscience, indigenous healing practices. It has been widely researched and shown to be one of the best ways to heal trauma. It has been used for over 40 years, and I truly, truly believe it is becoming more and more like accepted or recognized in clinical space. The more like the every single day, I swear, because more and more people are waking up to the fact that old approaches to therapy and psychology of just talking and understanding is outdated and it's not moving people forward. Somatics is what does it. Somatics is like the most powerful modality I've ever come across. Like I was saying at the start of the masterclass, I spent years going to therapy and counseling and medication, but it didn't really help long term. My depression or anxiety or insomnia or panic attacks. When I started doing somatic work, that is what changed everything. I'm not on antidepressants anymore. I haven't had a depressive episode in many, many, many years since I started doing somatic shadow work with a coach who first introduced me to it. And then it was so life-changing. I was like, holy shit, I need to learn and get certified in this space so that I can share this with more people, because more people who have experienced, similar things to me, who have tried therapy and found it just not very helpful. It doesn't give you the progress that you want, or it doesn't give it to you fast enough, or it just doesn't feel like it works for you, which does not mean you're broken. It just means you need to try something different. And a lot of the time we don't realize that there is a different option. Somatics is that different option. And so when I combine these two together, I use a combination of specialized somatic, emotional processing, and energetic trauma healing modalities that I've been certified in, and also, molded together and created my own powerful modalities that help my clients heal 10 times faster than talk therapy. I have had so many clients who have come to me battling a trauma or an experience or a pattern that they have spent months or years talking about in talk therapy, and they've not seen that greater results. And then they've come to me, and literally within 1, 2, 3 sessions, they're like, holy shit, it's gone. Because this approach works. It works. This is healing work, inner work that works. And so with this in mind, this was the approach that I took when I came out of my toxic relationship, my last toxic relationship. And I was like, I'm fucking done. I'm done. And so when I came out of that relationship, I then committed to 3 months of doing the deepest healing of my entire life. I was like, we're going all in. We are going all in. And so within for 3 months, I focused on healing the root causes. I focused on processing my emotions. I'm not meaning just analyzing or journalizing or chit-chatting about it. I felt them, I moved through them, I processed, I released through somatics, through somatic modalities that I have learned, that I have been guided through, that I've been certified in, and then I share it with my clients now as well. I went all in on my deep healing. Like I said, I invested in experts. I hired a coach. I also worked with an EMDR, a somatic EMDR therapist. I was dedicated to my healing, healing my attachment style, my father wounds, my inner child, my abandonment wounds, all of those things. I was like, this is what I'm doing. I also, while I was doing this, committed to no dating for a minimum 3 months. I set myself this really hard rule to make sure that I focused on the healing. I didn't just skip past it because I was lonely or wanted some external validation. I was like, no, I need to break the pattern, because that was always what I used to do. I'd come out of a relationship, have a wife for a week or two, then feel lonely, triggered, needing external validation. So I'd just jump back on the apps or go to town and meet guys and just like go on dates and look to that as my form of distraction or trying to get some form of like validation, reassurance. That didn't lead me to healthy places. It just led me to more unhealthy relationships, more heartbreak, more pain, and landed me right back in that same space that I'd been in multiple times of feeling completely crippled by emotionally by a toxic relationship. And so I set this hard rule of like, okay, if I want different outcomes, gotta make different choices. So I set myself a really hard rule of no dating, no dating apps, no hookups, no even entertaining someone like a talking phase. None of that. I allowed myself to be lonely. And as a result, I developed tools and tactics and practices to soothe myself and to navigate feeling lonely. Loneliness used to be like a huge trigger for my depressive episodes. And honestly, that was probably one of the biggest gifts. I mean, there were so many that this breakup gave me, was actually taking the power out of that, because I actually was like, allowed myself to sit in the loneliness and not just reach for like a quick band-aid. This then led me into my securely single era, where I focused on getting to a point where I actually enjoyed being single. And it's wild because when I got to that point of being like super secure in being single and I was loving life, I had this beautiful relationship with myself. I was like, damn, I am a fucking unique catch. I am a total catch. You know, yes, I'm an acquired taste. No, I'm not going to be for everyone. And I love that about myself. I'm not going to settle because I am fucking 10 out of 10. Like that was the level that I got to. And still in myself, now, because I focused on my securely single era. And like I say, is in part 5 is I became secure in myself first. And so I was like so secure in myself, so happy. I was at this point where I was like, you know what? I'd rather be single for the rest of my life than ever again settle for a toxic relationship and end up in that situation again. Like that is secure woman shit, right? And so when I dipped my toe back into dating, more from a place actually of an experiment for myself and the work that I'd done, because one of those thoughts that I had in my head, or a couple, was, what if I like, do secure men even exist? So I needed new evidence for that. What if I can't spot an avoidant? I needed new evidence for that. What if I spot an avoidant but I can't walk away? Needed new evidence for that. So I was like, well, I'm going to try some dating and use it simply as an experiment to build evidence of this for myself. I was not looking for a partner. I did not want a partner. I was like super happy in my securely single era. What happened 3 months later? I met the love of my life. I didn't realize when I met him that he was the love of my life. But basically, I met a really nice, secure man. I trialed, this new secure woman version of me where I spoke up. I wasn't trying to be the chill, low maintenance girly anymore. I asked the questions. I was my full authentic self. And I met this incredible partner. And I want to preface too, he was not the only secure man I met. I went on dates with many lovely, secure men. I went on a date with an avoidant and noticed that straight away. And I was like, nope, And so I gave myself all of this new evidence. But as a result, I also found the most wonderful man. And we have now been together for 2.5 years. We live together, and he is my person. I strongly believe he is my person. He is secure. He is emotionally available. He's very much in his like healthy masculine. I feel so safe with him. And although we're not like this perfect, like, I get really sick of Instagram couples and being like, oh, we're just perfect romance 24/7. We're like obsessed and glued to each other 24/7. Like that's not a real relationship. And so like, yes, we have the odd argument and things like that, but we are healthy. We're in a healthy relationship. together. And so when that was, the one of the biggest results of me doing this work, I also, within the 3 months of committing to my healing and doing this work, I had healed my anxious attachment. And I had spent the last 2-3 years in my last relationship trying to heal my anxious attachment. But because I was trying to do that in a triggering AF environment, it didn't work. Within 3 months of leaving that relationship and doing the healing work, committing to going in deep and healing from a root cause point of view, not just reading the attached book and trying some mantras, like I healed my attachment trauma and I became securely attached. I got over my ex, literally, boy, bye. I fell in love with like myself, my securely single era. My business actually blew up when I also started like talking about this sort of stuff. So divine timing from the universe, of course. I met some amazing friends. I was like the happiest. I started this new like happiest I'd been in years era because I was no longer like battling anxiety and crying every single day. I was living a life of freedom. So if you are now ready to go even deeper, if you are ready to start doing the work, the healing work that works, so that you never, ever, ever, ever end up back in a toxic relationship, back in this space of devastating heartbreak and a withdrawals, trauma bond breaking breakup, you need to do this work. And I am going to show you how you can work with me to actually do it. So, introducing my Somatic Shadow Work Hub. This is my self-paced course, which is a step-by-step roadmap for you to start doing somatic shadow work. You get instant lifetime access. I'm continually adding to it. It is a hub that when you click join, which hopefully you'll be doing after this, because it is such a, oh my God, there is so much in it. So inside, there is over 30 master training videos on different topics, different wounds, inner child work, attachment trauma, attachment styles, how to navigate a narcissistic parent, how to heal after a narcissistic relationship. That was a big one that I added in just recently. There are 20 somatic self-soothing tools, and I'm actually going to be adding more as well. There is already 5 guided somatic practices to help you start deeply healing. One of my favorites in there is a inner child connection and processing, especially for when you get triggered, because when you get triggered 99% of the time, it's not about you in your present day. It's about something in your past getting triggered, and that's usually your inner child. So there's an amazing practice in there. There's also a really powerful anger release, which is a emotion that so many women hold on to and then suppress in your body because we're never, it's an unsavory emotion for women to share. But it's such a freeing emotion. And often when you peel the lid off the anger that you've suppressed, you allow space for so much more to come through. There is workbooks for every single module. And when I say module 2, it goes through the same module flows as the mastermind. So you've got shadow emotions, inner child work, parent wounds, attachment trauma, past relationship healing, then inner teen work, then masculine and feminine, wounded masculine and feminine, and rebalancing. And there's a really beautiful somatic practice in there as well to connect into your feminine and start feeling safe in your feminine, which is really important if you want to have a relationship where there is that beautiful polarity where you're not the one being the mother all the time, or you're not the one having to book everything and organize everything. You actually can find a partner who wants to make you feel adored, who leads with love. You have to feel safe and comfortable in your feminine energy. And that was a huge one for me. So I've put in a really powerful practice in there as well. Then we wrap it up with sisterhood and bullying trauma, because that's also a piece that we don't recognize enough, is like how the other parts of our childhood, not just what was going on in your family home, but what was going on when you were at school or with your friendships. I myself know that bullying that I experienced in elementary school was really pivotal in my self-esteem. And I carried that with me as well. So there is so much packed into this program. You get to go at your own pace. And in this, you will be able to, and these are the key things that this program focuses on and that you will get out of it, is that you finally get to start uncovering the root causes of your unhealthy patterns, your beliefs, your triggers. You've probably noticed some already today. This program takes you even deeper because you cannot start healing if you don't have clarity, awareness, and understanding first. Otherwise, you can do some healing modalities, but they don't hit the spot or last as long because you don't actually understand the why or the relevance or the importance of the modality. So this gives you that foundational piece. You get to reconnect with your inner child as well as the past parts of yourself that are actually holding on to the wounds. Like I said before around triggers, when you get triggered in your life today, very rarely is it about what's actually going on in your life today. 9 times out of 10, something happens that triggers your nervous system, a memory in your body of something that happened way back in your past. Your body doesn't understand the concept of time. It doesn't understand that what you're experiencing now is like different to what happened 30 years ago. It just goes, oh, this is familiar, yank you right back to when you first felt it or when you felt it in the past and how you responded. And that's why we find ourselves in these panic or fight, flight, freeze trauma responses because it's how you reacted back then. And so how it's so important to connect with the version of you, the past part of you, your inner child, and various other past parts of yourself that were the ones that first experienced the trauma or the suppressed emotions or the triggers so that you can start healing them, because trying to heal you in the present moment is that top-down approach. Going back to the past is the bottom up. So there are modules and modalities in here to start doing that. You get to learn self-soothing somatic tools using breath, movement, sound, and touch. And this is even something that I am continually building out, continually adding more practices, more, body-based somatic practices, more like meditation, gentle somatic inquiry practices. So there's a bunch in there already, and it's something that I'll continue to add to. And when you are a part of the somatic shadow work hub, you get access to that. It's not a membership where you have to like pay monthly. One payment and you get access to what exists and what is to come as well. Then you also get to finally begin facing and understanding your emotions instead of avoiding and suppressing. And this is such a big one for so many people because we very rarely were we taught how to actually process your emotions safely or regulate your nervous system or self-soothe even. So we learnt what was generally modeled to us, which was suppress, ignore, emotions are weaknesses. But the thing is, your body is not some bottomless pit where you can just shove emotions and expect them to just disappear. No, they live in your body. And so inside the hub, there are already tools, there are already practices for you to start finally beginning to face them, feel them, and move through them. So if you would like to join the Somatic Shadow Work Hub, I have a very special offer. Full price for this course is $500. Or if you join now off the back of this masterclass, you can join for just $197. That's like, oh my gosh, my math, can't do off the top of my head, but it's like 60% off. Someone math check that, but I'm pretty sure 60% off. It's a lot, right? You also have a payment plan option available where you can split the payment into 2 monthly payments of $99. And the Link below this video is where you can go to the web page and you can get more of the details of what's covered, and you can also secure your spot. And it's not like a live course where you have to wait for it to start. Literally, as soon as you purchase it, you will get an email with login details and you can start right away. Like, you can literally start doing the healing right now. Also, if you have any questions about it, you can always message me on Instagram and we can have a chat through. I can answer your questions. We can chat through like if it's the right space for you. But there is loads of details and info about it on the webpage as well. The next step beyond that is my Shadow Worker Mastermind. And this is my signature 10-week trauma healing program. I'm currently running the 6th round. If you're watching this, this is August of 2025 and I am in the 6th round. Round 7 will be at the start of next year. I only run 2 rounds a year. And so this is the second one for the year. So round 7 will be coming in 2026. I am likely to start opening up spaces at the very end of this year, but there's another link below which takes you to the waitlist if you would like to put your name down for that, so you'd be the first one to get notified. But basically, the Shadow Worker Mastermind is everything I wish I had when I started doing this journey. Because I started doing the shadow work journey over 5 years ago now, and I had to go and find out all the details for myself. I took so many different individual courses. I spent so much time on like Google and reading books and listening to podcasts and doing certifications and working with different coaches. And I was like, it would be so nice if this was all in just like a one-stop shop. And I created that one-stop shop, which is the Shadow Worker Mastermind. It is a live group coaching and healing program. It is one of the only spaces where you get to experience my deep, specialized somatic, emotional processing and energetic trauma healing modalities. It used to just be reserved for one-on-one coaching only, but then my one-on-one coaching books fill up very quickly. But I know how powerful these modalities are, and I want to share it with as many women as possible. And so the Shadow Worker Mastermind was born. These modalities, like I've said, help you heal so much faster and so much more effectively and efficiently than just sitting on a couch or sitting on Zoom talking to a therapist does. This gets you into your body. It helps you rewire your nervous system. It helps you clear out energy and blocks in your body. It helps you finally process emotions that have been unprocessed and stuck and easily triggered in your body for decades. This is the program that does it. So we cover all of those same topics that, like I mentioned before, shadow emotions, inner child work, parent wounds, attachment trauma, past relationship trauma, inner teen work, masculine, feminine. I'm even tossing around adding in some extra topics for the next round, so stay tuned. But like I say, it is not currently open, but if you want to get a head start on this is why I recommend getting into the Somatic Shadow Work Hub, because you don't want to just sit around waiting for this to open for you to start doing work when you could be starting to do the work now. You can be starting the healing, start taking action, start understanding, start doing the foundation, so that when the next round of shadow worker opens, like the mastermind, you're like, right, I've done the learning, I understand, I have the awareness, I have some tools on board. Let's go deep into the actual healing modalities. And when you join the hub, you actually get your investment back, like credited towards your investment in the mastermind. So, if you choose to sign up now for $197 and then the next mastermind round opens, tongue twister, you will get that $197 taken off the price of the mastermind. So you will be saving a little bit there as well. It's not like you'll have to pay extra. So like I say, though, if you want to join the waitlist, there is a link below. But if you want to start doing this work now, the Somatic Shadow Work Hub is the place to be. Like I said, the link is below. If you have any questions, my Instagram DMs are always open. If you have any comments or feedback or questions about anything I've covered in this masterclass as a whole, like I say, my DMs are open. I can't wait to see you in the hub, and I can't wait to see some of you in the mastermind as well. Bye.